Welcome everyone to the first episode of Bowser Sports. And tonight we're going to talk about, first up is the Team USA victory over Canada 3-1 on Saturday night. Clearly the big news was the first 9 seconds of the game as Team USA wingers Matty Tkachuk, Brady Tkachuk, and JT Miller all had individual fights separately in the first 9 seconds of the game. It was undoubtedly, for many hockey fans, one of the most energetic beginnings of a game probably since the 1996 World Cup when the US and Canada faced off against each other. Those fights clearly got Team USA to establish their ground in their game against Team Canada. Impressively was not only the Jake Guentzel 2 goals. He played well with Austin Matthews. The Tkachuk line played well throughout. Unfortunately, as I think everyone's probably aware now with this timing of this taping, right, is Matty Tkachuk is now injured with a lower body injury, and still no news as to his situation. But yeah, it was a really good game last night. Really impressive with the style of play, which is actually quite the opposite of what you see under Mike Sullivan. And that kind of came out after the game that it was really the players who took the onus. It was the Chuck brothers and working with JT Miller about, hey, this happens, this is what we're going to do. They went out there and they did it, and they lived up to to the expectations. And for the U.S., that really got the puck moving, so to speak, right? And a lot of attention will be on the fight thing, but really, from a team perspective, not just bonding as a team from a fighting angle, but really with Jake Guentzel scoring 2 goals. I thought Austin Matthews, while he didn't score, he was fabulous defensively. Jack Eichel. Dylan Larkin with the game winner, just flying off the ice and using all that speed and just blowing one by Jordan Binnington. It was all night, Connor Hellebuyck was outstanding, but Jacob Slavin, Charlie McAvoy, that defense was unbelievable. Team defense, but just individually by all 6 defensemen, they really played an outstanding game. So really look forward to tomorrow night in Boston, where we'll have an early game first with the holiday. So we've got Canada versus Finland, and then you've got the nightcapper in Boston with the U.S. versus Sweden. So it'll be really interesting to see how U.S. decides to play that, as they will have the advantage of knowing who won the first game between Canada and Finland. And so I would expect, for one, that if Canada would win in regulation, that may flip some opinions about how the U.S. will attempt to play that game. They may rest a player or two from a health perspective. So, one, could that mean Connor Hellebuyck doesn't play since they already got it wrapped up to be in the finals? And so we'll see how Mike Sullivan and the U.S. coaching staff and the management team there under Bill Guerin play that out. So looking forward to that tomorrow night. All right. As it relates to the Penguins, we've got the trade deadline coming up, so keep that in mind. Pens have 8 games up until that deadline, 5 at home, 3 on the road. And as you can see here, there's a whole host of players that can be available. I do think that Kyle Dubas will need to have a really significant offer to move Raquel, but I think all these other players listed can be had for a price. The Pens have plenty of players who are on the fringe of coming to the NHL or being recalled and having more of an opportunity, be it that Rutger McCourty and maybe debut for Tristan Bras after the mono, since he's been back and scoring goals. And you've got Vasily Ponomarev and you've got Ville Koivunen. So there is some talent there in the NHL prospect depth chart for the Pens finally. No major goal scorers or anything like that, but there are definitely players that the Pens have that I think need to be up before the end of the season so they can start to get acclimated to the NHL game, especially toward the end of the season. You've got teams playing for the playoffs, getting that experience. I think is very important, which is not the norm under a Mike Sullivan coach team or the Penguins in the Crosby era, right? It's usually we're making an attempt to qualify the playoffs, but over these last couple of years not qualifying and not playing well, I think it's really time to focus on developing the youth and those opportunities. And with that comes, hey, maybe they won't be, um, you know, at the bottom dwellers. Maybe they play up to the competition and they play well. They don't qualify, but they play well enough to get that experience was important so that next season things that can happen. So we'll see. I think out of this list here, I think Grudjuk is most likely the one to go. Maybe someone will want to pick up Achari with coming into a 1 year deal left, next season or 2 million, and wanting that fourth line gritty, experienced playoff performer who can take a draw, play penalty kill, be in the right wing as well. So I do see that potentially those two to moving. Otherwise, like I said, Raquel is probably not gonna get moved here. So all right, let's move on over to the Pirates. And boy, oh boy, geez, like days into spring training, we find out that their depth is already a problem, right? We've got a first baseman who was already questionable with 12 home runs max in his career in a season, high on base percentage guy, little power, really suspect as a defensive player as well. So we'll see what happens with Spencer Horwitz. They seem to be optimistic with the wrist injury and the surgery to be out 6 to 8 weeks. We'll see there. As a result, we don't know who's going to play there. They're talking about these minor league guys who have a cup of coffee, maybe Nick York or someone else like Matt Gorski. Maybe these guys get an opportunity to play, and we'll see. But again, a team with Paul Skeens and Jared Jones and Mitch Keller, Andrew McCutcheon, and Brian Reynolds, and Owen Cruz, right? They deserve better than a maybe guy at first base, and now that maybe guy is even out, right? And now he's out for 6 to 8 weeks, and with the wrist injury, you never know. And as a result, the team failed to sign anyone in the offseason, right? And so here we're sitting and looking at Tommy Pham as their big acquisition, and he's going to play in left field at 37 years old, which is basically asking, I got to play the depth and ground and range of a center fielder at 37 is not a smart move. And here we are, got the Pirates are going to have already declining, we'll say outfield skills of Reynolds moving to right, which is the right thing to do when unfortunately you're covering it up with a 37-year-old. One of the big news pieces that came out of spring training was Cherington's main move awaits. And, later on, I think was the next day, right? He told reporters, and, we're not on the doorstep of anything. Well, you one moment say your main move's coming, and then the next moment you're telling people, well, we're not ready. That we don't have anything. And why is that, right? And so what's going on? And what's going on with the ownership? Where's the money going? So there is a financial analysis that DK Pittsburgh Sports is performing, and that should be out here. You would hope within the next week or so, as Dejan and the people that he's working with are investigating that, and I have my opinions about where I think the Pirates are at. I believe firmly that they're well over $100 million in operating income, and let's just say that's anywhere from 50 to 70 million in taxes and payments and insurance and stadium debt and loans from COVID and things of that nature. So there's a lot there that goes into operating a baseball team. And when you have constantly, top, or in this case, bottom of the league, and spending your plenty of money left over, and especially in the new age of the CBA in 22, where leagues teams are spending ton of payroll, and they're sharing 48% of their locally generated revenue, which is you know a pretty big number, and teams like the Pirates benefit from that. And so we'll see what DK Pittsburgh Sports, good friends over there, and we'll see what happens with that report and what kind of information can be uncovered and sourced through team info and maybe some other information there. So we'll look for that, and we'll kind of comment when that comes out for sure. And then last today, and this is my first episode, so we're just going to wing it. You may hear me hesitate, stumble. It doesn't matter. We're going straight through here. So the last thing is just to mention on the Steelers. It's silly season already. We've got people talking about every QB who's out there and available, free agent or trade. Oh, they should be with the Steelers. They're a top target. Well, Aaron Rodgers is 40-some years old. No interest there. Drew Stafford, maybe. I suspect he'll remain in with the Rams. Sam Darnold, I don't see that happening. I think he's going to want a lot of money, and I think he's going to want many years, and I don't think the Steelers are going to be willing to commit to a long-term deal to a guy who didn't look good in his last couple games of the season, to be honest with you. When it comes to Wilson, as I'll refer over again to DK Pittsburgh Sports. I think that ship is definitely sailed in Pittsburgh. And the guy I want to see them to do is a short-term deal with Justin Fields. I think he got messed over last year, this past season, and I think Mike Tomlin really needs to right a wrong there. He bragged about how he made that decision, and well, look what happened. Russell Wilson kind of tanked it for the last half of the year and struggled and couldn't get the team out of the losing streak. And then the other thing we're going to be looking at as time moves on here is the draft, right? I think this year's draft is interesting. I don't believe it is a high quality deep draft. I think there is quantity in certain positions such as defensive line, running back, and so every year obviously there's a pretty decent amount of skill wide receiver. That I don't think it's the top end or as deep as years past, and then quarterback, likely someone. I don't think it would be wise to draft anyone early because I don't think there's really a franchise starter there in those rounds. So we'll see. I think there's a lot of focus right now on the defensive line. So we shall see what happens, and we'll be covering more of that as the winter and spring nears and we get into the draft time. So with that, it is my first episode. I hope everyone kind of just enjoyed it. This is just me getting used to speaking, so on this type of format, and we'll tighten it up as we go here. But everyone appreciate the first listen, and please join and subscribe and like all that good fun stuff. And talk to everyone again tomorrow.